Now it's time for Whispers, your number one source for all things paranormal, with your hosts Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, and produced by the lovely Lola Miller. Whispers is brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. Unforgettable, historical, educational.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whispers on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 6:10 p.m.
And cold.
And cold outside.
I'm glad I took my garbage out today, so I don't have to do it first thing in the morning.
There you go. My garbage ran last night, and it was cold out when I took it out because I waited till like 3 o'clock in the morning to do it.
And why did you wait until 3 o'clock in the morning to do it?
Well,
were you out partying, Jordan?
Let me tell you how this guy parties.
Oh,
I was watching Prison
in your
Break.
chicken suit. Oh.
The chicken suit got destroyed. He's got a bunny suit now.
I watched
the
four first episodes of Prison Break season 3.
You know, I really loved that show until I don't even know what season it was. I stopped watching when they got
easy. Don't tell me something that I
yeah,
Jordan,
I don't know what season.
Put your fingers in your ears and go la la la.
La 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 la.
My wife, probably where my wife, she finished watching it, but there was a point where she's like,
"Why am I doing this?"
For a little while, but it picked back up again. So maybe.
Well, I liked it when they were in the Spanish prison.
See, that's
or
where
Mexican
they're at now.
Prison.
They're right there now.
It was
she was trying to root
after
it for you,
that
and you broke her heart.
that I stopped.
Yeah.
It was after that season.
That show is just so intense. I can't.
Have you caught up with Lost yet?
Yeah. Well,
by the way, Jordan's got Netflix, and he's found all these shows and.
I'm just now catching up. I watched 4 seasons of Lost in like 2.5 weeks.
Isn't that wonderful?
I watched the 2 seasons of Dexter in like a week and a half.
Is that any good?
Oh yeah. God, I can't wait.
Would my wife
like
it or
Dexter.
not?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Dexter's awesome.
Now, did you have the edited versions?
No.
No, you've got the HBO version or Showtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I can't imagine how they could.
How do you edit a serial killer who's just graphically killing people the whole time?
You know that was originally going to be on CBS.
I didn't.
I didn't realize that until I was like, CBS, really?
Well, I'm glad they didn't because it would lose something. It really would lose something. So you've seen his flashbacks to when he was a child and his mother got killed?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. No wonder he screwed up.
And what else am I watching? Heroes.
Oh.
I just started season 2 of Heroes.
Heroes, it'll go one season, you'll think, oh, man, I can't wait till next week. And then the next season you go, this is another hour wasted a week. I'll never get back.
We stopped after season 2, and I just never had the inclination to go and...
Well, like season 1, it took like 6 episodes to get into.
Well...
Yeah. And then like as soon as Siler came into the picture, it was just like, oh my God, I have to watch the next one. Oh my God, I have to...
serial killers, don't you?
I don't know why. I'm just a weird
begging
kid.
me to go. You got to get a serial killer guest, like an expert on. I'm thinking I'm not getting. He's like, Charlie Manson could pick up the phone. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing. I've been watching since I don't know how did we even get into this, but flash forward.
Yes, I love that too.
We've got to the one where I won't give it away for anybody, but like 2 or 3 episodes in, and all of a sudden it just started getting really good with the little girl says what she saw in her dream. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And it was like, what? Or though the crows. We saw the crow. That was the last one we saw.
I'm
and the DVR is great.
Oh, I love my DVR. Both of my TVs with DVR. I'm constantly having to delete things that I really did want to watch when I recorded it because I'm up to 98%.
Well, you've got to talk to me. I've got this huge computer, an Alienware computer with a 1 terabyte drive, and it records all my stuff, and so I don't have to delete. And it's like I can record like football shows. They're just sit there, and I can finally get to them. I mean, that's what 4-hour show, So it's
the system he has is so ridiculous. He's such a nerd.
Well,
but you love it and envy it.
I do.
Please build me one.
See, now that's what I like about the idea with BIOS is you can record in one room and watch it in another, or pick it up like you can on demand now. If you start a show on one TV, you can watch it on another.
See,
but
on my computer, I can watch Hulu. It'll access Hulu like through the internet and play it on my TV and Netflix. So it just pops right up.
What is one of the
Windows Media
programs
Center.
for older TV shows? I was trying. Wow, what show was I trying to find? Oh my goodness!
The heck are you
Okay,
doing?
it's recording.
My bad.
Mm-hmm. Now I don't remember what I was trying to find.
It's hard to find older TV shows, and that's one of the ones that because I've been watching some Twilight Zone through Netflix.
You say you're watching Twilight?
Twilight Zone.
Yes. You can catch them on Sci-Fi.
I know, but I was just watching this one because I saw it there. And I was like, I'll try it out.
Twilight Zone is great.
Oh my god! And it's every time and it's so.
Have you seen the one with Burgess
fresh.
Meredith? Something about
Is that the one where they think they crash land or?
No, it's he loves to read, and he's got either a real harpy wife or mother, and he's
Time Enough at Last.
Yes.
Oh, that was a great
man,
one. That was a great one.
It is. That show is so great.
I watched one with Inger Stevens just the other day. Where this hitchhiker keeps showing up. She's driving across the country, and this hitchhiker keeps she sees him, kind of creeps her out. She runs from him, and then every time she gets to a new city, he's already there hitchhiking. Man. And she's trying to run, and she's trying to explain it to herself, and they're great, and they date well.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff. I mean, I like Dick Van Dyke, but it's timeless.
The one with I think it was the chick that played Ellie Mae Clampett on Beverly Hillbillies, and all these people, they're doing this. They do plastic surgery on her or something, and they're taking the bandages off her face.
Eye of the Beholder.
Yeah. And they all look like.
All right, children.
Piglets.
We got Tom on line 2.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, how you doing?
Oh, who's on 1?
1 is our guest.
Oh, well, okay. Let's talk to Tom.
But I want to get Tom first.
I'll be brief.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, you can get the whole set of Twilight Zone at the library. It's like
really?
About 7 discs or something, and it's got maybe about half a dozen shows on each disc. But have any of you seen Fringe? It's on.
Yes, I love Fringe.
Fringe is also an awesome show. I'm a little bit behind on that one with the DVR. We watch so many different shows. Supernatural is another one we watch, and there's shows, and it's weird how certain shows with the DVR, all of a sudden you have a different priority. Smallville, House, Bones, and Supernatural are the ones we watch first, and then Fringe used to be one we get to first, but it got a little slow, and so it's like, let's watch something.
Well, they've had sports on the last couple.
Yeah, and then House has not been. It's strange how all that happens. But Fringe is a great show. It reminds me a little bit of X-Files.
Yeah.
It's like a J.J. Abrams version of X-Files.
And I love the Mad Scientist.
He is. That's the main reason I watch it.
It is
for him. He's so funny.
Thanks for your call, Tom.
Okay, see ya.
See ya.
We should get to the guest.
We could sit here and talk TV for 2 hours.
Let me lasso you children back in.
You're the one that started this.
I know. I'm horrible. Our guest tonight, Miss Juanita Rose Bellini. She is the author of The Almanac of the Infamous, The Incredible, and the Ignored. Juanita, you with us?
I sure am.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Sorry it took us a minute. We, I guess, got hooked on TV shows.
There.
Tell us about your book. It's got a pretty interesting title.
It is. It's got a pretty long title, but it is filled with 365 days of real-life mystery, unsolved crime, unexplained phenomena. There's stories, weird stories of destiny, missing people, vanishing people, UFOs, crop circles, skyfalls, dream predictions, and supposedly mythical creatures, but there have actually been documented incidences with mermaids. We have ESP, magnetic people, time slips, lost treasures, coincidences, frogs and stones, horses that can
This must have been the most interesting thing to research, of all time. You had to have a lot of fun just going and looking up all this stuff.
I had a huge amount of fun. It took me 10 years to do it, but I am a research junkie.
There you go.
One of the there was a lot of the stuff you already just said. I'm like, I gotta ask her about that, guys. Skyfalls and time slips are two of my favorite. I mean, just the things that can fall out of the sky are just amazing. Uh, what are some examples of things you've come across falling out of the sky?
Well, fish and frogs are the most common things that have fallen out of the sky.
Fish and frogs?
Yes. And there's probably been over 200 documented cases of fish and frog falls in the last 500 years. Even the latest one just took place this last summer in Japan. They had a frog fall, and with everyone with their cameras, you can actually find pictures of them online. These little pink frogs splattered all over cars.
Really?
Kind of interesting.
Now, how often does this happen?
Well, it probably happens once a year, I'd say, on average. You don't really hear about it, or you hear about it and it's explained away. It's the prevailing opinion about fish falls, for example, is that they've been picked up by a water spout and then dumped inland. But the problem with that theory is that if the water spout did go and suck up the fish out of a pond, why didn't it also suck up some dirt, some seaweed, a variety of fish? So often fish falls are just one species.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's usually just like one different type, which doesn't make sense. I mean, it's hard to explain. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It is. It's very weird, and the weirdest ones I've heard of are when the fish fall in a straight line.
Now explain this one.
Well, I'd love to be able to, but it's a book of unexplained. I don't know why. Some of the instances, though, the fish will fall in a straight line, maybe 80 yards long, and these have been taking place like before airplanes, before any kind of new scientific explanation would work. Sometimes it's blamed on other people doing it, but then someone thinks, well, where did the fishmonger get all the money to buy all these fish, and how did he get up there in the sky to drop them on us? And so there's some pretty bizarre stories. One of my favorites is called the Kentucky phenomena, and this is when flakes of beef fell from the sky.
What?
Yeah, and even some brave soul tasted it. Yeah,
First thing I would never ever do.
No.
This looks healthy.
Yes, and they had it tested in laboratories. It was definitely identified as muscle tissue. This fell out of a clear sky.
Wow.
In the late 1800s, and one expert's solution was, even though you couldn't see them, there was like this herd of vultures overhead, and they all vomited at the same time.
Yum.
I know.
And the guy that ate it's going, what now?
But I didn't see anything.
Now, how did you even find this?
Well, I started with a couple of just contemporary books that were available and went back to the sources. So Charles Fort is, of course, a great.
Because you have to like Charles Fort to do this.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of other people out there who have been recording articles that they find in newspapers and just presenting them. So yeah, it was great. I did a lot of finding out of print books and trying to contact people in towns that the stories had happened in to see if they could verify them or not for me.
Yeah.
There was one story about a man who got swallowed by a whale, spit up, all kind of white and clammy, and they said in the book that I was using that his tombstone was in this certain town in England. So I got a hold of someone in that town and asked them, is it true? Is this tombstone actually in the cemetery? And they wrote me back and said, no, not there. So then that story didn't make it into the book.
Yeah.
So
now I've heard of money falling out of the sky. I've heard of I'm gonna think blood falling out of the sky. Did you run across anything like that?
I did.
Really?
There was instances of money and blood falling out of the sky. There was also in one crazy case. An alligator fell out of the sky.
Just one, or?
Just one.
Because if there was a bunch of them, I would not want to be in that town.
No.
How big was the alligator?
It was your average alligator size. Like, well, I'm guessing. Let me guess. I don't know actually what an average alligator size is. So this one was around 7 feet.
That's not small.
Now, was it alive when it landed, or?
Well, it probably splattered if it fell like a great.
You never know, though. You never know.
No, I think what happened was the woman whose yard it fell in beat it with a piece of wood. It wasn't alive for long. Yeah.
See, that's the opposite of my reaction. I would have ran, looking for a gun or something.
And
Man.
That's awesome.
Now, the other thing that interests me is time slips. Can you explain what a time slip is?
A time slip is when people go around a corner or something, or just see something that is not from the time that they are in. It can be back into the past, and there's also one instance I found where it went ahead into the future. The most well-known time slip took place in, I've got it on August 10th in my, in the almanac. It's called the Versailles time slip. This is in 1901 it happened, and 2 school teachers were visiting Versailles, France. They were touring the gardens. They passed through a gateway, and all of a sudden, everyone was wearing much older clothes from the time of Marie Antoinette. They were very curious. They thought maybe there was some kind of tableau going on, but they couldn't find the building they were looking for. It says one thing that one of the women says was everything suddenly looked unnatural, flat and lifeless. There were no effects of light and shade, and no wind stirred the trees. So it had an eerie feeling to them. Eventually, they did find their way back to the present and did some research and found out that it was the time of Marie Antoinette that they went back to.
Wow.
So there's another one that I really like about a fellow in the First World, where was it? It was between the World Wars, and he was flying over Britain, and he was looking for an abandoned airfield from the First World War to help him get his bearings. The clouds parted, and he saw what was supposed to be the abandoned airfield, but it was active, and there were planes there that he hadn't seen before. It allowed him to get his bearings. He went back to where he was supposed to be, the airfield he was supposed to be in, and told everybody about this. They all laughed at him. You got to quit drinking, this kind of thing. But then shortly after that, when World War II started, it ended up that the airfield was reactivated, and he had seen the planes and the Air Force from that time.
Wow.
That is, I think I've heard that. That's one of the cooler stories I've ever heard, actually. I mean, because that's the only one that you've seen that was forward, correct?
It was.
Okay. Because my question was, how could he distinguish between, because you said it was used in World War I, you know that it was World War, newer planes, I'm guessing, then, and such, right?
I think the difference was in World War I, they were pretty much biplanes that were being used.
Makes sense.
Hey, Juanita, I hate to interrupt you real quick, but we do have to take a break.
Okay.
If you just stay with us.
Sure.
You're listening to Whispers Radio on AM 1600, WKKX, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Whispers Radio on AM 1600, WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 6:33 p.m. Cold outside. I don't know the degrees. My computer never works in this place. I swear it's the gremlins. Give us a call, 304. 48 degrees. That's
Mine
cold.
Mine works fine.
I don't know. My computer just does not want to work in this building.
Do you want to know why?
Because it's a Mac.
Yeah,
I don't
want to hear
it.
There's an Apple on the back.
I don't want to hear it.
I'm going to blame it on the bathroom ghost.
See? You get it.
That's who I'm blaming. He zaps our phone lines all the time, too.
Okay, if you notice, Lola's voice changed a little bit. Lola had to go out. She's got dress rehearsal tonight for the play she's in this weekend. And Miss Kelly is joining us. She is our replacement Lola. She's our second string Lola.
Good evening, everybody.
So give her some love. She wants some love. She wants some paranormal love.
After you just said she's a second string Lola.
He didn't say second rate.
I didn't say. Come on now.
I am.
I'd hit him.
If we can't have Lola, we got our second best.
Thank you.
There we go.
That's right.
We got a caller before we get back to our guest?
We do.
Or is the caller for the guest?
I believe the caller is for the guest.
Okay, well, let's welcome back Miss Juanita Rose Violini.
Hello.
And, ma'am, we have a question from a caller.
Okay.
Okay, who we got?
We have Patrick.
Mr. Patrick.
Hello.
How's things?
Good. And it is because of the ghost. You realize that?
Oh, I know.
It's in the building. That's why your computer don't work.
Yeah.
I actually had a question for Juanita, your guest tonight. Thanks for coming on, by the way. I was just wondering if she had seen the program. I can't remember what channel it was on. It was either the History Channel or TLC, and they were explaining the plagues in the Bible. It had something to do with the tectonic plates and
I saw that too.
Turning the seed. You seen it, Kelly?
And the bacterias and things like that.
Yeah, it turned this lake, and it actually still happens today. They had, pictures, recently, like 10 years ago, where these ponds or lakes or whatever would turn blood red, and it had something to do with the shift in the tectonic plate, and that would drive that's what drove the frogs into Egypt, and a volcano had something to do with, I don't know, heating this pond up, and the fish went into the atmosphere. I was just wondering if she had seen that program, and if you researched any of that into some of the modern things that you put in your book.
Actually, no. Believe it or not, I don't watch television.
Oh, if you're a writer, I believe it completely.
There's only so much time in a day, and all the I haven't watched television. All the stories in the almanac are pre-1999. I don't know if that has much bearing on it, but no, all my research has come from books.
All books. But, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying about tectonic plates? Well, Kelly's seen it, so
sure.
She knows what I'm talking about. But they had scientific proof of why things like this happen.
They went through this whole litany of extraordinary circumstances, and and if you were holding your mouth at a 45-degree angle and the sun glistened off your teeth,
Right, all the things that would
That's why the frogs fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
And I just thought maybe that you'd explored some of that stuff and tried to get into a scientific explanation on why some of these things happen.
Well, I have. I tried to look at things fairly from both sides of the coin. A lot of times it seems like it just depends what the most recent news is. Like the Shroud of Turin is something that, 1 year definitely the real deal, and then the next year someone's going, no, we found it's not really that old, and then the next year someone is going, but wait. So it's a lot of these mysteries go back and forth between what's real and what can be easily explained away. So when it comes, right down to it, and the mysteries that got included in the book, I just went with my gut instinct. If there was, conflicting evidence both ways, then I just trusted my feelings on it.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on. It's been entertaining. I'm looking forward to the rest of it.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Luggy.
Thanks, Lug.
Later.
So, what is your favorite mystery that you've had to research? That you had the most fun trying to get to the bottom of, or just enjoyed, reading about the most?
One of the ones that I really loved is the mystery of the money pit at Oak Island.
Yeah, we've had an Oak Island show before.
Okay, well, that was really fascinating.
Now, did you go to the island, and did you look? Like, how...
I did go to the island.
Did you?
I did, and I stood at the end of the causeway, and somebody stood at the other end of the causeway and said they weren't allowing people on anymore. Now, so this was about 4 years ago. I did. I get kind of these crazy ideas once in a while. So I picked up a rock off the causeway and I brought it back with me. And I thought, oh, maybe sometime this rock will tell me something. But
any responses yet?
No, I'm too busy. But I did go out there, and there's a wealth actually of information available about Oak Island. So that was a mystery that really appealed to me. There's amazing coincidences that are like unbelievable. One took place in 1950 in Nebraska about this church choir that they were supposed to meet at 7:20, and everyone was late. There was like 17 people in the choir, and they were all late. Luckily, because the church at 7:25 blew up.
What?
For nothing, windows were broken, a radio station was knocked off the air. I don't know if they came. There was probably some scientific reason.
It was an
for
inside
the
job.
explosion.
They knew it was going to blow up.
Yeah, but yet, two people of the choir were delayed because of car trouble. Two stayed home to hear the end of a radio show. One girl had to finish her math homework. Some overslept. Others were just late for no reason at all. So it was like a 1 in a million chance that everyone would be late. So that was kind of a cool coincidence.
No idea why the church plumbing gas would, backed up, or someone didn't like the church or something like that, or
no.
Wow.
No, it must have been just like some mundane, old wiring, old heating, something like that took place. It would be my guess.
Have you ever investigated a mystery and just once you started really looking into it, just thought like, oh, come on, and really ran across something that was just ludicrous or that you found to be fraud? Or
well, the ones that I found to be fraud I didn't put in the book. The ones that are in the book I am all convinced are genuine, except, okay, I'll come clean, I'll be honest, except for one. There is one out of these 365 mysteries in the book that I'm going like, did this really happen? And then I'm going, you know what? This is such a good story. I'm just going to put it in.
Just because you can.
But
see, now everyone's got to read them all and try to guess which one it is.
The mystery for today I find is really interesting. It's called the Great Sheep Panic.
Yeah.
And in 1888, for over 200 square miles in Reading, England, at approximately 8 o'clock at night, thousands of sheep, by simultaneous impulse, burst out of their bounds and were found the next morning widely scattered, some of them still panting with terror under hedges, and many crowded into the corners of fields. Something huge had to have taken place to scare all these flocks at once. It happened again the following year in the same area, but no one could ever figure out what it was that spooked these sheep. They thought if people were doing it, it would take 1,000 men to roust all the animals out and send them into a panic.
Wow.
Those are like maybe a sub-audible sound that maybe the sheep can only hear that are spooking them, or scientists been trying to get to the bottom of this.
Well, this was in 1888. I don't know.
Never mind then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
We let him talk for the fun of it. It's
okay. Sometimes. That's the sound. Maybe today we could find something that that there's some type of sub-audible sound that causing it. I guess, but back then, they wouldn't have. So, never mind.
All right, now with your book, did you get into any stories of the what are they, like the nature spirits, like the leprechauns and the elves and the pixies? Did you get into all that?
I did get into some of that. There are quite a few fairy stories in it.
Uh-huh.
And this came from the source for this. There was a fellow in the late 1800s Werner Evans, his name is Evans Wentz, and he's the same guy that translated the Tibetan Book of the Dead. He went throughout Britain and recorded stories from people who lived there. They were mostly in their 80s and 90s, so they were talking about things that they knew of that happened to them when they were younger, which would probably be like late 1700s, early 1800s that these took place. But there's quite a few. There's probably 7 or 8 fairy stories in there. There are even instances from current times of people seeing like really short, like 8-inch beings. And this is all over the world. This isn't just in Britain, but there have been some instances in the United States where people have seen fairies.
Really?
Yeah.
Where exactly?
Where would Fairy Town be? Was this like New York, San Francisco?
Let me look. Okay. So this is a little earlier, 1919. Near Barron, Wisconsin. 13-year-old Harry Anderson was riding in a car when it ran out of gas. He was sent to the farm to get more gas, and when he was returning, he saw 20 little men trooping single file down the road towards him. They had bald heads, leather braces, and knickers. They completely ignored the boy as they walked mumbling towards him. So that's one of them.
Sorry.
Yes.
Now, okay. Do you get into any like the paranormal, like UFOs and ghosts and hauntings? Like, did you touch on that kind of stuff for the incredible?
I did.
Part of your stories.
I did. There's not a lot of hauntings. There's a couple of ghosts. There's some UFOs. I tried to get a bit of everything. The only thing I really stayed away from was recent true crime. Like, I'm not into the gory murders. The purpose of this book, or my hope for this book, is that it'll get people curious about the world that we live in again, and maybe open up their eyes and look closer at things that are happening around them. So I really wanted it to be a positive book in a way, even though...
Is there anything like in your background before you wrote this book that led you to, down the path to writing this book?
Well, I just noticed a lot of peculiar things in my life, just little things, not anything hugely spectacular. And I noticed the world really wasn't the way that people said it was. So that just always had me interested.
Can you give me an example? Something that you noticed, or?
Well, I noticed. Let me think. Well, okay, when I was really, really young, like 2 or 3, I can remember seeing fairies on flowers. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Like, did you try to catch them?
No, I think I was just so inspired by them. But I completely forgot about it until after my own children were born. And somehow when I was watching them watch the world, I had this memory of being able to see these little flower fairies. And I've just had some really cool coincidences. Like this past summer, I work at a toll booth on the highway, and it's really slow. So I'm reading a book, and in the book, one of the characters is eating pepperoni pizza, and I'm going, pepperoni pizza, that would be so good right now. And a truck pulls up to my booth. I open the window, and this guy is sitting there. He's got this huge pizza. He says, "Do you want a piece of pizza? It's pepperoni." I'm like, wow.
Did you say yes?
I did say yes. That was great. It was, just coincidences like that. Or just sometimes seeing things out of the peripheral vision. Do you ever notice things out of the corner of your eye and you look at them and they're not there?
Yeah, we get
every now and then.
All kinds of shadow people here in the studio. It freaks Lola out. I don't know about you, Kelly. What do you think?
No, I do get that a lot here.
Do you?
Like, you'll think, like, I'll turn to see who's walking in the hall. Like, you'll think you just saw, right outside these doors.
Yeah, our studio's in an old bank, so people always say they see people walking down the hall or walking in the other room, especially.
Which is why I go when the show started. I look over and the door's open, and I'm just like, hey, I was like, I'll ignore it. But no, I have to get up. I have to close it because if the door's open, I do think that I either hear something or see something walk past the door, which just bothers me.
And I think it was one of Lola's earlier shows in the day, the broadcast. They had some angel readers. I think that's what it was. Two ladies came in that said they were psychic, and they walked in and said, "Oh my God, your bathroom's haunted," and had a whole story of of this building. So,
I mean, how do you think this? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Who's talking?
You are. Go ahead.
Your turn. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to go back previously a little bit. There's also an incident of 8-inch entities in North Carolina in 1976. Just a woman out walking saw a garden gnome-sized man strutting down the highway, and then she followed him, and he got lost in a cornfield. So I was just going to add that to the fairy.
Wow.
Thanks.
I mean, it seems like do you go into more like because these are more you hear about them, but it's not really famously known. Does that make sense? Like you go into like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or Jersey Devil. Did you ever go and actually research these more well known cryptozoological creatures?
Phenomena.
I did a little bit. I didn't travel to do it. But
sure.
I did research that the Jersey Devil's in the book, the Loch Ness Monster, the Dover Demon.
Anything different than what most people think of about these? Did you find anything that you would think is unique?
No, I don't think so. Not. I mean, they're very unique as they are.
Sure.
So yeah, no, I don't have any little extra tidbits on those. Part of my hope for doing this book, I made sure all the entries were 300 words or less.
Okay.
And I'm really hoping that people, if they get curious, will try and find out more for themselves about any of the mysteries.
Now, did you include sources for, you looked it up in this newspaper or that newspaper or, this book or that book?
I did not include the sources. There is a recommended reference list at the back.
There you go.
But if people do want to know, I did keep track of every reference for every story. So
okay.
If someone is interested, they can email me through the Incredible Almanac website, and I can let them know what my sources were for any of the mysteries.
Now, do you ever think about setting your book up as like a calendar or like a daily inspirational, day to day? Because they're all like the little short segments of, hey, here's a funny thing that happened today.
I think that's a great idea. I'm hoping my publisher will think that's a great idea.
Well, hey,
from Jordan's mouth to your publisher's ears.
There we go.
And see, the thing is, I would buy that. I mean, I would already buy the book, but I'd buy especially like a day-to-day where you tear off the sheet at the.
Yeah.
There you go. See, remember when you make it big and famous, Jordan Klein, Whispers Radio, hooking you up.
Excellent idea.
All right. That is all the time we got for you today. We want to thank you very much for sharing your stories with us. We have a link on our page to your book.
Now, there's two different websites you give me here. For the book itself, IncredibleAlmanac.com. That's IncredibleAlmanac.com. And you also have this MysteryFactory.com. You do mystery parties?
Yes, that's Mystery Factory is the result of 20 years of live mystery entertainment, and it's some scripts and party instructions for kids that we sell.
Okay, I know we're out of time, but I just want you to touch on that really quick. What is a mystery party? Because that sounds kind of fun.
That does.
It's professional. Well, it's scripts, and so you need 6 actors. You can do it for any size of group. It's an improv script, so there's not a lot of rehearsal time. It starts off with a murder. There are clues, evidence. It's all there in the package that you can get online. Tells you how to run the show.
Oh, so it's like your own
mystery theater.
Murder mystery thing.
Yes.
How cool. You could do like a dinner murder party.
We could do like a Whispers.
We could do it here.
Dinner thing at the radio show.
We
I
could
love the
kill
idea.
Nick, and they could have to come and guess which one of us did it.
We could do that anyway.
Look at the bathroom shows.
I love that
I'm
idea.
always the victim.
Now, you got the information for that on the site too, Nick?
Yes, I do.
That's
Linked
now,
up, ready to go.
How much money does that usually cost? Like
the,
for
the professional that's $125, and kids parties are $14.95.
sounds so much fun. We're gonna have to do that.
It would be fun.
We're gonna.
They're a hoot. I can help people custom put them together as well.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna be hearing from us.
Alrighty.
All right, and we have your book. We got a picture of your book on our site. You can click on it, and it'll go to. Is it Amazon?
Amazon.
Nick?
Yep.
It'll go to where you can buy your book on Amazon.
Also
the
buy it
Almanac.
off your website too. So.
The Almanac of the Infamous, the Incredible, and the Ignored. I want to thank you very much for being with us.
A lot of fun.
Miss Juanita.
Thank you very much for having
Thanks,
me.
Juanita.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking like next year, or yeah, the coming year, we need to like sell tickets for WKKX murder mystery dinner.
We could get everybody involved.
Oh my gosh. It was John Blackmore in the vault with a hammer.
It was not I.
I love this.
See, there's better victims. We could find a better victim than me.
No, we can't.
I think so.
I think Novotny wants a couple swings at you first.
Yeah. Everybody would line up. It's like everybody killed him.
Oh, I think we could sell tickets.
And Lola's
I think
a
people would-
professional actress. That's
There we
why
go.
she's not here now.
Yeah, Lola's out acting.
So Lola could be the star. It works.
I'm excited. My heart's a thumping.
Lola knows all those script writers.
Yeah?
They write all the plays and stuff she's doing.
Mm.
It's so much fun.
Kelly,
In my mind, it's already a done deal. Just so you know.
mine and Kelly's brains are like
Oh.
synced right now.
They're already printing out the.
I know. I'm already thinking, who do I want to
The
be?
posters and
The invites are already set.
Jordan's trying to figure out how to use his bunny costume. It was the bunny with the carrots.
What is this? Josh on the chat room saying, "Oh, poor Nikki."
Poor Nikki.
I know. If Josh, if you
Why,
only knew.
why are they trying to kill me? Josh, call the cops, quick! No.
No, I think somebody call in. Do you think you would be interested in purchasing tickets, or do you think people in the valley here would like to be a part of a murder mystery dinner at WKKX? 304
And by dinner, we mean like
1600
pizza and cokes.
and killing each other.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun.
Jordan's already got plans to go out and buy the stuff to make blood. I can see it in his
Already
eyes.
did.
Caro syrup and
For,
food coloring.
Oh, he knows. He's
For,
got it down. He's got it down.
Grandview Park Haunted House. I made it
Gallons
was like
of
2.5 gallons
Yeah.
of blood.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because that's how I roll.
Oh. In blood?
That sounds kind of sick.
You say blood.
Beauregard's saying we could have it at River City.
Well, they have it at River. They have murder mysteries at River City. I've been to one with Bert
Do they
Farrelly.
really?
Yeah, Bert Farrelly.
Well, I know they
I
do
don't
dinner
know who
theater. I
else.
didn't know they did murder. I've never been to
Yeah,
one.
it's we went
I
to a
would love to
Christmas
do
one
it.
a couple years back. It was a lot of fun. I'd met Bert before, so it was kind of interesting seeing him
Yeah.
in that.
Bert's great.
Yeah, he's a ham too. which
Yes,
is-
he is.
And it was a lot of fun. I guessed wrong. I didn't get the murderer. I guessed it was Santa. But it was
You would.
Santa. He had that shifty look in his eye.
If it was Santa or if there was a little kid in the room, Nick would be like, "That's the killer. That's the killer."
Well, the little kid. And I was like, gotta be the little kid. That they came with her parents. Like, crap. The little kids are freaky.
I guess nobody's calling.
Did he
Nobody-
just say little kids are freaky?
They are.
Nick is terrified of snakes and little kids.
Ever since watching Shining the Anaconda, I was scarred for life. If you haven't noticed,
I'm gonna bring my daughter and she could chase him around going, red rum, red rum.
He would.
We-
Nick and Lola.
we'd all know who killed me then. I'd just be in the middle of the intersection out there. I'd ran in front of the car or something.
Now Lola brought this up last week, Kelly, and I'm gonna say it to you just so you can feel the wonder of how crazy Nick is with his fears. Snakes. Nick won't drive on a road that is known to have a snake on it in fear that it will come up.
No. I'll drive down the road, but if I see a snake, I will put my feet, lift my feet up. And it's one of those instincts. It really. And I noticed. I know this about myself.
I can't laugh because, as we know, I'm the same way about bats.
Oh God, put bats on my list too. Because you saw me, I ran in fear.
No, I didn't see you because I was the one at the front of the line.
Yeah, I was following her.
Yeah, I was making a pass.
I was pushing her, move quicker.
Yes.
I gotta get out of here.
And actually, right after that, I got a bat in my house for the first time ever.
Really?
And left my baby.
Well,
left her in the dust.
I was watching this morning. I guess there was a bat that somehow got into one of the basketball stadiums. This basketball player just swats it down with his hand. Then he had to go get rabies shots. I was thinking of you.
Well, I thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
You're such a generous guy.
But I was like, he swatted it down and handed it to one of the attendants, and they carried it outside, and it totally flew away.
That's my husband. He's not the big, I don't know, it's not a humanitarian, the animal pacifist or whatever, but my daughter is. So to keep the peace, I'm screaming, kill it! And she's got him, shooing it out the door.
Shoo it, Daddy. See, that's why kids are creepy. Your daughter is creepy.
My daughter has experienced
Keep it, Daddy.
Really?
Keep it.
Yeah, probably more so than anyone else.
Did she see it?
She didn't see it. She heard it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it on the break.
We have to get her on the show.
Oh, she's a ham.
It's time for CNN, everybody. Little news break, and we'll be right back with our second guest, our second hour here on Whispers Radio. You're listening to AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog.
Pulling out at first dawn's light. Gotta free my mind, get you out of sight.
A lot of the pedophilic parties went down in this house, and it was wired for audio-visual. And high-ranking people in American politics would be invited to parties at this house, congressmen, senators, people in the Reagan administration, people in the first Bush administration, people in the CIA, people in the upper echelon of the armed services, and a lot of the parties would go down in this house. And if people engaged in any kind of illicit sexual activity, or there was also drugs available, they would in turn be compromised.
Wow. Like I'm at a moment right now, and I don't get speechless often because I like the sound of my own voice, but I don't know what to say to like that many people in our government, especially like the Bush administration. Was this the first Bush administration? The last Bush administration?
The pedophile network was active in the throughout the Reagan administration, and also it kind of came to an end in Bush 1's administration, but Bush 1's administration was the administration that covered it up.
Wow.
That pulled the strings.
Now, how did you find all this out? Like, how did you dig in there? What were your steps taken?
My mother lode came. There were, and there again, this sounds kind of mind-boggling, but there were 3 grand juries that were used to cover this up. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar with grand juries, but grand juries have been notorious because they've been so easy to hijack. A former judge in New York State once quipped that a special prosecutor of a grand jury could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. And that's because a special prosecutor is chosen to oversee a grand jury, and grand jurors are just regular citizens. And the special prosecutor has a tremendous amount of power because what the grand jurors, what he shows the grand jurors is what the grand jurors see as far as evidence. And only the witnesses that he calls before the grand jury are what the grand jurors hear. So special prosecutors are in an exquisite position to co-opt a grand jury. And there were actually 3 grand juries.
that were co-opted to cover this up. Two in Nebraska, a state and a federal grand jury in Nebraska, and then there was also a grand jury in Washington, D.C. that was co-opted to cover this up. And my mother lode came with, I acquired the vast majority of the sealed documentation from one of those grand juries. The vast majority of the testimony and the vast majority of the exhibits. I've got FBI reports. I've got social services reports. I've got Omaha Police Department reports. I've got inter-office memos of the Omaha Police Department, of the FBI. I've got testimony. I've got phone records. I've got flight receipts. I mean, I've got everything.
It's when you're talking about this pedophile ring, is this where you have a group of children who are all staying together in one place and are being used for this purpose, or were these just a group of children who each lived in their own individual homes and their guardians participated in this?
There again, a lot of these kids came from an orphanage, and a number of them were just kids that were estranged from their families that had gotten into drugs, and some of them were from the foster care system and from and other facets of the social services system. So the kids, these predators they knew how to prey upon children, and they knew who to grease and who not to grease in their quest to acquire children. So they came from various milieus.
All right, when we call it the Franklin scandal, what exactly is Franklin? Is this the name of a person, name of a organization?
It was the name of a stove invented. No, I'm just joking.
This is going to get interesting.
There was the Franklin Credit Union, which was there were two pedophilic pimps in this network. Or there were two pedophilic pimps that kind of ran it. There was one in Omaha named Lawrence King Jr., and there was one in D.C. named Craig Spence. They were both Republican power brokers. Both had amazing connections within the government and within the Republican Party. And Lawrence King Jr. of Omaha, his day job he was the manager of the Franklin Credit Union, which he ultimately embezzled $40 million from.
Jeez.
Probably with some help from his friends. But the Franklin Credit Union went down, and law enforcement just wanted to take him down for his financial crimes. And what happened was the Nebraska legislature started looking at the financial crimes, and they thought, well, how does a guy, plunder a savings or a credit union for $40 million, a credit union for lower socioeconomic people that was only supposed to have $2.5 million. So a legislative committee formed to investigate these financial crimes. And shortly after they formed, a number of social service employees came to them and said, financial crimes are only half the story here. There was a huge interstate, nationwide pedophile network being run, and that was the front for this pedophile network. And so these legislators started to investigate Lawrence King Jr.'s sexual crimes against children at that point.
Wow. Now, when you were talking about the political parties that were involved, we got a question from Nora's boy. Was both political parties, were they both equally involved in this, or was it kind of one side over the other?
The names that have come up in my investigation are both Republicans and Democrats. So I think that this crew was an equal opportunity compromiser. But it was covered up under the administration of George Herbert Walker Bush. Mm-hmm. But here's where it gets kind of interesting.
Uh-huh.
There was a U.S. magistrate that helped cover it up, and he was bumped up to he's now a sitting U.S. judge. Now, he was bumped up under Clinton. Now, there was an assistant U.S. attorney for Nebraska that helped cover it up. Now, he was bumped up to a U.S. magistrate, and that was also done under Clinton. And Omaha is in Douglas County, and there was an assistant Douglas County attorney or a deputy attorney that helped cover it up. And he was county, and he was bumped up to an assistant U.S. attorney under Clinton. So although these officers of the court covered this up under the administration of George Herbert Walker Bush, they were all bumped up in the federal judiciary under Clinton. So in my book, I make a kind of an argument that the system is very corrupt. And that's one of the points I use in the book as far as the system being corrupt, is that these judicial officers covered it up under George Herbert Walker Bush, but yet they were elevated in the Clinton administration.
Now, one of the things that that disturbed me the most was that the Boys Town is somehow, I don't want to say connected until I hear exactly how they're involved in this, but that Boys Town seemed to come up a lot. How does that connect to all of this?
Okay, with Boys Town, the first victim that came forward was Ulysses Washington, who had been taken out of that foster care home.
Mm-hmm.
And she told her foster care mother that there were Boys Town kids on the flight to Chicago and also to New York. And her foster mother was a friend of a youth worker at Boys Town. And Ulysses met with the youth worker, and the youth worker wrote like a 46-page report on Ulysses' allegations. Now, when the legislative committee formed, they hired an investigator named Gary Caradori, and he started finding victims too. And this was after first of all, law enforcement, the FBI said that they had investigated it when in fact they hadn't. And then they said that they investigated it when in fact they just intimidated a couple of the victims that came forward. But this investigator for the legislative committee, he found victims. And 3 of those victims said that they had been on planes and flown to either the West Coast or the East Coast. And they said that Boys Town kids were on those flights too. So this investigator got a list from the sealed grand jury documentation. I had the names of approximately 60 victims. And there were approximately 10 Boys Town students on that list of the 60 victims. And I found, the first one I found was in Kansas City. So it's not like I'm randomly finding these victims, mm-hmm. or like I'm putting an advertisement in the paper looking for victims. You know, I've got like a paper trail to them from this investigator.
Yeah.
And so I found him, and he was pretty candid with me, and he told me that he had been on a number of flights to Washington, D.C. in his junior and senior year at Boys Town. Then I talked to a former Boys Town mayor. Now, Boys Town is an incorporated city. It has its own police department, and it has its own zip code. And every year, the student body of Boys Town elects a mayor from the student body. And he told me that he was cognizant of Lawrence King Jr. plundering Boys Town for underage victims. And then I came across a third Boys Town student who said that he, in fact, and he said that he started flying around with Lawrence King Jr. when he was 12 years old. Wow. That he'd been taken out of Boys Town at 12. And then I found another Boys Town victim on the same list, and he said that he'd been molested by Lawrence King Jr. on approximately 12 occasions.
Lawrence King
Jr.
Jr.
That's a lot of corroboration, not only from other victims, but then from victims that were at Boys Town too.
Wow. We'll be right back. If you can hang on with us, we got to take a break. You're listening to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX and the UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. The former West Virginia Penitentiary housed some of the most violent criminals in history. Many of the prisoners who lived there also died there. It is known for being one of the most bloody institutions in the United States. Don't miss your chance to experience the former West Virginia Penitentiary. Your tour will consist of an astonishing 90 minutes that offers an awesome history, a touch of art, cold hard facts, and an education of the justice system. Tours start 11 a.m. Tuesday through Sunday. For more information, go to www.wvpentours.com or call them at 304-843-4146. check. Welcome back to Whispers, everybody, on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. We just had a short break there, had to reground our feet and get things going. Give us a call, 304-214-1600 if you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. If you got a question for our guest tonight, Mr. Nick Bryant. We are talking about the child pornography ring that he has written a book on called The Franklin Scandal. He said it's a 600-page book that unlocks that conspiracy. It's no longer a theory. It was a conspiracy that he has documented very well. Nick, we did have a problem with our recording again this week. We lost not long. How much time did we lose?
I think just right at the beginning, just
about 5-10 minutes into it.
5-10 minutes into it, but
okay.
It is fixed now.
So if you're listening on the podcast and you're thinking, what's going on here? What happened? That's what happened, and we apologize for it. But hey, that's what happens when you're trying to record live radio.
And just blame Nick.
And it's Nick's fault.
Nick's fault.
I'm gonna make a side.
What's bad is you made fun of Mac computers and your computer crashed, but that's cool.
The ghost obviously likes apples.
Mr. Nick Bryant, you still with us? Or did you hang up?
Are you there,
no,
Mr. Bryant?
I'm still with you.
Okay, now we were talking about whoa, I lost his name.
The Franklin Scandal.
Lawrence King Jr. As being one of the prominent guys who was molesting the children. Now who else?
He seems like he was running the.
Was he running the ring?
Yes, there were two primary pedophilic pimps. One in Nebraska, it was Lawrence King Jr., and in Washington, D.C., it was Craig Spence.
Let's go. We've talked with about Lawrence for a little bit. Let's go with Craig Spence on the Washington side of things. I'm going to guess, just thinking about this, that he was probably the one arranging where these children would go and to whom they would be sent, correct?
Well, Craig Spence had the house in D.C. that was wired for audio and visual. And he was also, and this is where it gets a little bizarre, he was also a CIA asset.
Oh, really?
And he has said on record that it was, quote-unquote, friendly intelligence agents that wired his house for audio and visual. And he has also said on record that he was a CIA asset. I've talked to a reporter who was able to corroborate that he was, in fact, a CIA asset. And then he also spent $20,000 a month on escorts. And I managed to talk to the escort service owner that he spent, that was the recipient of the $20,000, who spent a lot of time with both Craig Spence and Lawrence King Jr. And he said also that it was a CIA operation.
Was it an actually CIA planned operation, or is it just something that the CIA turned a blind eye to?
I do not know. I can't provide. In my book, I definitely show that the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the Secret Service covered it up. I mean, that I've got nailed. It's up to the reader to decide. I present the evidence, and it's up to the reader to decide whether or not they think that this was a CIA operation. But the CIA does come up quite a bit in this story, and certainly, and a lot of people that were affiliated with this network in one way or the other do believe that it was, in fact, a CIA operation. But I present the evidence in the book, and you'll have to read the book, and then you can make up your own mind whether or not you think it was a CIA operation.
Now, you mentioned 60 different kids that I'm guessing that were known to be victims. How many is that overall, 60, or is there an estimate of more?
There were many more.
Okay,
I mean,
okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Was able to glean the names of about 60 victims.
Wow.
But there were many more. This pedophile network operated with impunity for like 10 years. And it was, I would say that they would probably recruit anywhere from 50 to if you want to keep it at really minimal numbers,
sure.
You could say that they recruited 50 kids a year, which I think would be a minimum number. But they were in operation for 10 years, so I would say that there were at least 500 victims
500 to
with this
1,000.
pedophile network.
Now we had another question on the chat room that asked, Nora's boy asked, any of the managers of the orphanages, what kind of trouble did they get into that were involved
Nobody
in this?
got into any trouble at all. According
What?
to state and federal law enforcement, there wasn't a single child molested at all.
And I'm reading that Lawrence King only got he only served 10 of his 15-year sentence.
Well, that was
for embezzlement and fraud.
Oh, that was for embezzlement and fraud. I'm sorry.
That was for financial crimes. According to both state and federal law enforcement, there wasn't a single child molested by this ring.
Oh, so he never even got in trouble.
We got it. Well, what happened?
So
with
no
the
prosecution took place at all?
No prosecutions for child molestation took place whatsoever.
Okay, so
and
was this
actually,
investigated
there was a
at all
girl,
then?
Let me just let me finish
sure.
on this note. There was a girl. The FBI came in with a full court press and got most of the kids to just collapse or frighten most of the kids away. But there was a young girl who had been enmeshed with the pedophile networks, and she was 14, and she refused to recant. And the grand jury where I gleaned most of the documentation from, indicted her on 8 counts of perjury. She was potentially looking at 160 years in prison because she refused to recant. I get into her trial in the book. It was truly a kangaroo court. She talked when she was 21. Her brother died very mysteriously, and she was ultimately sentenced to between 9 and 15 years for perjury. And she spent nearly 2 years in solitary.
For perjury about this?
Yes. And in my book, The Franklin Scandal, A Story of Power Brokers, Child Abuse and Betrayal, I really get into her trial. I get into the miscarriage of justice that was the grand jury that indicted her, and then I also get into the miscarriage of justice that was the trial, her trial for perjury.
My goodness.
I mean, it had to have been investigated to some degree then. Who investigated this at all? I mean, that started going into this. Was there anybody?
Well, there was, according to federal and state authorities, there wasn't any child abuse whatsoever.
Okay.
But there was this legislative committee that really wanted to get to the bottom of it, and they hired an investigator who was a great investigator, and he was getting to the bottom of it. And he was in Chicago, and I do believe that he got pictures of this pedophile network in Chicago, and he owned a small plane, and he was flying back. He had told, I've got 5 corroborations that he got pictures in Chicago.
Now, who is this that we're talking about?
The legislative committee's investigator.
What was his name? I'm sorry.
His name was Gary Caradori.
Okay.
And he was flying back to Nebraska, and his plane mysteriously broke up over Lee County, Illinois, and he was killed. And then 2 days later, the FBI subpoenaed all of his evidence. Just came right into his business and laid down a subpoena that demanded all of his evidence.
Wow. I mean, the frustrating thing about all that, I mean, because number one, it makes you mad. I mean, first off. But secondly, it's just, I mean, you had to have gotten frustrated going through all this.
I've gotten very, I've gotten upset. I had a lot of anger initially as I was uncovering it, because as I came across more and more victims and more corruption, I've written a lot on children's issues. Where I've really been upset lately is the mainstream media's unwillingness to touch the story.
I was going to say, is there anybody else even talking about it? Because, I mean, I've heard about it in a couple of books here and there. Nothing really, kind of more in passing, like, there was this investigation. Some people saying it was a very, I think one of the grand juries at one point said that it was a very... a
carefully crafted hoax.
There you go, yeah. And it's just like, but, I mean, what you're saying, I mean, there's such a paper trail, for a hoax. I mean, they did a really good job.
And I mean, you could call it a hoax, but I mean, these are children.
I mean, there's got to be people out there right now that actually had, that experienced this, that were...
Well, how many kids did you say? Like 500?
That's what I'm estimating.
That's a minimum.
Okay, there's 500 people out there that their lives are
ruined
it's shattered.
These kids, I found these kids in projects. I found them in homeless shelters. I found one in prison.
I bet that's the case with a lot of these children.
Well, that's why it's a perfect system, because these kids the vast majority of these kids came from lower socioeconomic dysfunctional families. They were molested and turned on to drugs. I mean, drugs were an integral part of this. If they kept the kids drugged. So the kids were molested, repeatedly drugged, and then when they got to be a certain age, they were spit out and discarded like gum that's lost its flavor. And they were drug addicts, and they had been molested, and they went on to perpetrate crimes and be drug addicts, and so they've basically compromised their own credibility.
Now, expanding away from this a little bit, first off, I'm hoping this is being stopped, this pedophile ring.
Actually, I believe that this is still going on to this day. I mean, in my book, I talk about another pedophile network, and that one I directly linked to the CIA. I mean, the CIA directly stopped an investigation into that. It was called the Finders. It was a cult that was busted with 6 children. Wow. And the U.S. Customs got involved in the investigation.
There's a couple of questions here on the chat room. I'll make sure I get them real quick. Is it true that Halliburton in Iraq was running a child slave ring? Have you heard anything about that?
Well, there was in Halliburton. Basically, employees of Halliburton basically facilitated an employee getting raped, but DynCorp, which is a military contractor, was running a pedophile network in Eastern Europe. I mean, there's been a couple of articles written about that.
Okay, and then one other person that asked, I've heard about kids disappearing out of foster care in Florida, and I'm guessing, they're kind of implying maybe this was connected to this. Is there any truth to that? Have you heard about anything, people coming out of Florida?
The thing about it is, wherever there's a demand, there's a supply.
Yeah.
And I have come across other pedophile networks that I believe were covered up just like Franklin was. The thing that differentiates Franklin from these other pedophile networks is that there was a legislative committee that refused to give in, that started to investigate this. In these other situations I believe that were certainly power brokers were involved, and maybe the government was involved. Any investigation was shut down almost immediately.
Now, what were the ages of the kids that were involved in this, which I'm scared to ask? But
as I said, the youngest kid that I talked to was involved with this network when he was 12. I've come across instances where I've heard of kids younger than 12 being involved. And then all the way up to late adolescence.
Now, is this something that you investigate a lot, or as a freelance writer, is this a subject that I get? It sounds like you're, something that you're very invested.
No,
in.
I've written a lot. I've written a lot about children's issues and about disadvantaged children, and I never thought I'd end up in something like this. I'm not really into quote-unquote conspiracy theory. That's never been my thing. I've always thought that the magic bullet of the Warren Commission was a little fishy, but, I've never really gone much further than that. And I'm not really, I'm not one of these people that read all kinds of books on conspiracy theory. But when I heard about this, and I heard that, children were allegedly being abused and that it was covered up, I thought that there was enough smoke that there might be some fire. When I went to Nebraska the first time to investigate it, and it was then that I scored a lot of the grand jury documentation, and I had talked to one victim, and I talked to some other people that had been involved with the pedophile network. So, and then I also had a death threat too, so that kind of sanctifies things.
You had a death threat against you?
Yes, the first time I was in Nebraska.
From, I don't know how much you want to go into.
Give us names. We'll hunt them down.
It was a very strange-looking woman who came to where I was staying, and said that I was in a great deal of danger and I was going to get killed. So that was.
Now, do you think maybe she
was
was one of the
almost
victims?
Anticlimactic. You can read about it in my book.
Do you think she was one of the victims?
I think that she was older, but I think that she could have possibly been a victim at one point. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Now, where can we get your book?
You can get it. It's the Franklin Scandal, a story of power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to my website, www.franklinscandal.com, and you can order it there. And my website has a documentary trailer. I'm starting to put together a documentary on this, and there's a lot of stuff on my website, including a forum that you can get involved in if you'd like to.
Now, I do want to say this, and I commend you. It says the publisher is donating 50% of the book's proceeds to organizations that assist abused children.
Yes.
Which is
so
great.
So it's a very, not only will you be getting a good book, but half the monies that are received from the book will be earmarked for a good cause.
Now, when do you think this documentary will be coming out?
We're trying to raise money right now to finish it, and anything associated with Franklin is always very difficult. I wrote an article about it, and no one in New York City would touch it. No major publisher would touch it. No major magazine would touch it.
Now, why wouldn't they?
I think there's a couple of reasons. The first is that when you say that I mean, people watch television and they see these pedophiles that are like crack smoking and they live in trailers, and it's kind of like the lone pedophile. But when you go to a different paradigm and you say that actually rich and powerful people molest children and they're pandered to, kids are actually flown across the country, and then it's covered up by federal law enforcement. That requires a certain paradigm shift for people. They don't want to embrace that, even though I had an airtight article on it, and then I wrote a book proposal on it, and I gave it to my agent, and my agent dropped me, and then I got another agent who tried to sell the book, and no publisher in New York would touch it, and I finally got the book published. There was one courageous publisher in the United States that was willing to step up to the plate and publish the book.
You've left me speechless tonight, and that's hard. I know Jordan's probably harder than me, but it's just one of those things. I mean, I've heard about this before, but I never knew it was just this deep.
See, I've never heard of it. So this is all new to me. I'm the young guy in the room, that when this was coming out, I was like 4 years old. So I mean, I never heard any of this, so it's all new to me. And to think that this is going on, I know, this is a paranormal show, so we hear all about the dark, crap that our government does. But to think that they would be involved in this, I'd rather.
There was a limit, right?
You'd think, okay, well, they're doing hidden pagan sacrifices to devil gods, and then using our tax money for it. That story, yeah, it's probably kind of acceptable. It's our government. You wouldn't expect any less. But when you get into, child pornography, slave rings, and stuff like this, that the Bush administration is keeping under wraps, the Reagan administration's keeping under wraps, that all aspects of government and these well-to-do people are doing this in our country. It's just like my brain is numb that anybody. First, why do this to a child to begin with? And to think that they're getting away with it too.
There are some sick people running our country. What else can I say? I mean, you can tell by looking just at how the country is being run and our foreign policy. I mean, it's not too difficult to discern that there are some sick people leading our country.
I'm with you on that.
I agree.
And I think a number of them are compromised. And it doesn't. You can compromise a politician with. You just don't need children. I mean, you can compromise them with young men in their late teens, early 20s, young women in their late teens, early 20s. You can compromise them with money. Nothing makes people stupid like sex, greed, and arrogance. And a lot of our politicians have that trifecta of sex, greed, and arrogance. So
yeah.
So I think it's, and in my book I really do get into the possibility, the probability of a significant number of our politicians being compromised.
That's even the scarier part. That if someone has this against them, what can they get them to do?
Yeah, the blackmailing aspect, and it's still going on. You said this is still going on today.
It's been going on for centuries. I mean, political blackmail is nothing new, and I mean.
Well, I was talking about the pedophile aspect of the blackmail.
That's going on for centuries too. I mean, the first documented account of a sadistic pedophile was the Roman Emperor Tiberius, who his thing was having sex with children and killing them. And so there's a precedent for both power brokers or powerful people being into children, and then there's a precedent for blackmail. So to think that we've transcended that in our current state is kind of foolish.
I guess it's just a hope that we've become better people.
Yeah, you'd want to think since the
Roman
days.
times, yeah. And we haven't.
But the thing about it is, and as I said earlier, it was covered up under George Herbert Walker Bush, but the officers of the court that found themselves upwardly mobile, that happened in the Clinton administration. They were rewarded by the Clinton administration. So that kind of shows that there's a very corrupt system out there where people can cover something up under one administration and be promoted under another administration.
Yeah, I was going to say it's regardless of party. You're all part of the same club, more or less.
Yeah.
Is it like, what is it, NAMBLA? Is that the
North American Man-Boy Love Association?
The fact that you know that scares me. But
I have one of those brains that keeps all that little information.
But is it involved with that? Is it like a wing of that? Are these guys members of that?
I wasn't able to find any association.
And I would say you're probably not going to, because they wouldn't want to be that outwardly associated with that, because that would destroy their career. But if they can do it in the privacy of a plane or a house, hidden away in Washington somewhere, yeah.
But it's all there in the book. I mean, everything is proven, and a lot of it I use grand jury documentation. I mean, you can't get much better than FBI memos, FBI reports, Omaha Police Department reports, grand jury testimony. I mean, the book is solid, and it's nailed. The Franklin scandal. It's solid.
Well, we do have a copy of a link to the book on our website, whispersradio.com. We got a picture of it. You can click on the picture, and it'll take you right to, is it Amazon, Nick?
Amazon. Also, you can buy it from his website. I have that linked up, franklinscandal.com. The book's there to buy. I highly recommend it. If you want to know what's happening.
And I mean, this is like you didn't hold anything back. You said it was 600 pages of unlocking this conspiracy.
Well, a lot of the main narrative is like 500 pages, and then some of the documents that I have are just so mind-boggling that we threw a bunch of documents in at the end of the book. I've got pages and pages of documents because we just felt like we had to throw in a lot of my documentation because some of the documents that I have, especially the first document I have on the U.S. Customs report of the cult that was trafficking children and their investigation and the investigation into the cult being squashed by the CIA. I mean, I have that in black and white in the U.S. Customs report. We've got that entire customs report. Wow. And then a number of the documents that are affiliated with the Omaha network are also in the book because it's just my documentation is quite mind-boggling. So we just thought that we had to throw a bunch of the documents at the end of the book.
That's amazing. Everybody go out there, buy the book, get your brain knowledge going on. Nick Bryant, we want to thank you very much for sharing this story with us. It's amazing. It is.
It's shameful, but it's amazing.
It's shameful.
It's worth the read. It's just edify yourself. You can see just how corrupt government can be. and someone needs to make amends to these children. As I said, federal law enforcement said that, and state law enforcement said that there wasn't any children molested, and there are scores of children that are either dead or very damaged by the abuse that they suffered. This needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be prevented in the future. That's why, in this book, I'm diagnosing a disease in the society. Anytime that the federal government aids and abets child abuse, that's a disease. And in this book, I'm making a definitive diagnosis of a disease. And I need other people to see that I've diagnosed a disease, because the only way you can cure a disease is by making a diagnosis of it. So my book basically diagnoses a disease. And when enough people read it, enough people get edified, only then will we be able to cure the disease.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much again for sharing your story with us, and let us know when the documentary comes out, because we'll have you back on to promote that.
There'll be updates on my website, www.franklinscandal.com. Just have your readers or listeners go to www.franklinscandal.com, and they'll be updated on my progress.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll keep in touch.
Have a good night.
You guys have a good night, too.
Okay, see ya.
Okay, bye.
Wow. You know, and Callie, you said before, you know, you have a kid, so this is totally different than us. You know, we don't have kids, but, you know, I used to work with kids. Nick's a teacher. But, I mean, we don't have a kid. You know what I mean? Like, this hits the mom issue home.
Well, and I've been a foster parent before, so it does. Because, you know, I've seen firsthand the damage that happens to these children. And the denying that it's happened, and that's almost feeding on the trauma of these children, because so many of these children go on to have mental illness and never recover from the initial trauma stuff. And that's with the best of support groups.
Yeah.
And all the help in the world. And then to just have them thrown out to the wolves is just...
Yeah, to say it never happened.
Yeah. I mean, and you're just... Because I'm sure there are a lot of these children did it. You know, after you hear that so much, because they're so used to just going away.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
It's numbing.
It truly is.
Man.
It truly is.
Well, Nikki,
I don't know what to say at this point. It just makes me mad.
Thank you for booking that guest and making us all numb.
Well, I mean, it's, you know what though, dang it, we need to know. It's
really,
one of those things. It makes you sad, but at the same time, it makes you want to pick better people. And it's sad that the same people come in. You know, I was looking today. I'm teaching a Greek history, in the term oligarchy, which is a government ran by a few rich, and you know, then below that democracy, and of course, and I'm thinking we're sort of getting close to that oligarchy. I mean, because it's always the same families. You know, the Clintons have been around for a while now, the Bushes have been around for a while, Kennedy. I mean, all these rich families, and you got a couple of people in there that's just enough to make a show of it. That, oh, you can grow up one day, son, and be a senator, or maybe even a president. Maybe, but not. You're not going to do anything.
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's the rich. You got to be rich.
All right, next week, I want to just say, because this is a special lady to us, Mr. Sherry Brake. She is our paranormal mama. She is the one that taught Nick and I ghost hunting, got us started in the paranormal world. She does the ghost hunts at the Moundsville State Penitentiary, among hundreds of other places. She just set up an office in West Virginia and is going to come on and share some stories with us.
Cool.
And thank you, Callie.
Thank you for having me.
Possibly Mark Nesbitt.
And Mark Nesbitt. Okay.
Maybe.
He's Ghost of Gettysburg.
So I'm hoping so.
Cross your fingers. Nikki's working on it. Kelly, you're the best. Thank you very much for joining us.
I'm the second best.
You're the second best.
Hey, we've got several people at the best level. You're part of them.
Oh, thank you.
You're of the
very
upper
few
echelon.
We're below that a little bit. We're
All right, everybody. Until next week, don't be afraid. Only believe.